Hey guys, Ultra Maximus back with another movie review. This time it's a little bit different. It was a television show, would-be, that was turned into an NBC Halloween special. It is Mockingbird Lane, the reboot of the Munsters. And this was produced by Bryan Singer and directed by Bryan Singer. Unfortunately, NBC did not have enough faith in the show, I guess. There were some issues during production, and when they finally saw the pilot, they didn't work. And they went ahead and aired what they had. That was a 1-hour pilot. They aired it as a Halloween special in 2012 this year. I think it was October 27th it aired. And it actually came out very strong ratings. It was the #2 rated show of the night. It was a Friday night, and it led into Grimm, and Grimm got like 6 million viewers, and Mockingbird Lane got 5.4 million viewers, which trounced anything else that was going on except for Shark Tank, I think, had a little bit better ratings than it. So it actually debuted very, very well, and a lot of people were upset about it. And to be honest, I was like, I don't know. You know, it looked so dramatically different. The commercials for it looked so dramatically different than the old TV series. And I'm like, how is this going to work? I really kind of cringed, because I liked the Munsters growing up. I watched all the reruns as a kid. And I'm like, how are they going to do this? Because they don't look like Universal monsters. If you don't know what the Munsters are, it's an old 60s sitcom that was kind of the counterpart to the Addams Family, the competitor to the Addams Family, essentially. There's Herman Munster, who's a Frankenstein. His wife Lily is a vampire. Their son Eddie is a werewolf. There's Grandpa Munster, who's Lily's father, who's also a vampire. And then Marilyn, which is their niece. She's the normal person. So they decided to reboot this. And it's a little different. It stars Jerry O'Connell as Herman, Portia de Rossi, is that how you pronounce her name, as Lily, and Eddie Izzard as Grandpa Munster. Of course, Jerry O'Connell, famous for Sliders, and he's done lots of great stuff since then. Phenomenal actor. He's a really good actor. I do like him. And of course, Portia de Rossi, she was in Ally McBeal, Nip Tuck. She's Ellen's main squeeze. And Eddie Izzard, very famous actor, been around forever. And the two new people that they added, a kid named Mason Cook, who I really never seen him in anything else, and then Charity, let me see, Charity Wakefield. And I kind of looked, I didn't know who she was, so I looked her up, and she's got TV credits here and there, but nothing consistent and nothing too huge. So this probably would have been her breakout role. However, NBC didn't pick it up, and it's doubtful that they will pick it up, because it's been a month now and there's been no word on it, so I don't think they're going to pick it up. So what was this about? Essentially, it's kind of hurtful to watch, because it doesn't play like a TV movie at all. It plays like episode 1, season 1. And it's a shame, too, because it is interesting. I didn't want to like it, but I sat down and watched it, and it actually got my attention. And I think it's because of the actors that they had in it. So, basically what this is about, Eddie is going through puberty, and his werewolf is coming out, and they got to move because he attacked some Boy Scouts. And they moved to 1313 Mockingbird Lane, which apparently is in San Francisco, because at the end of the episode, you see the bridge in the bay behind the house. So they move to this new house, and they're dealing with Eddie, and Grandpa is wanting to feed again, and he's wanting to eat the neighbors and all this kind of stuff. And Herman's heart is kind of falling apart. Herman he is a Frankenstein. He's got stitches here, stitches everywhere, but they make him look normal, which is actually not a bad thing because they can pass in society, and it wouldn't work, I don't think, today if they looked like the Universal monsters they did in the 60s. It just wouldn't work. So I mean, they all look very, very human, and I gotta say it worked. Portia de Rossi, she looked really hot in this as Lily. Had some very odd dresses. That probably was going to be a shtick with her, with these different wild kind of dresses. Jerry O'Connell, he captures that kind of loving nature of Herman from the original series, and Grandpa is evil. I mean, this whole show is really kind of evil, underlining evil. It's very, very, very odd. And it's kind of funny too, because Marilyn, there's something wrong with Marilyn, and I don't know if they kind of take it on the fact that her mother was a vampire like Lily, and the mother tried to eat her or something, and they kind of talk about stuff, and Lily's brother was a werewolf like Eddie, and I don't know what happened to those siblings, and maybe those siblings would have come back in a later episode. But yeah, Marilyn's, there's something wrong with her. It's like she's snapped mentally, and she's always got this kind of fake, false, and it just, she was probably one of my favorite characters because she was so weird and so not right in the head. And Grandpa was good. Eddie Izzard did a good job, and he was basically Dracula, and he was going to kill and eat everybody. Lily was not too bad. I liked her. She was different than the TV show version, but she was kind of hot and sexy and sensual, very vampirist-like, but she also wanted to be a good mother, which was kind of interesting. And then Jerry O'Connell just did a great job. He's the family dad and want to hold the whole family together, and but he's got problems with his heart that's breaking, and Grandpa's trying to fix it, and it just kind of goes on from there. So yeah, and to be honest, by the time it was over, I was kind of sad it was done, because I was wanting a little bit more development in the story, but it was written to be a 1-hour episode because they were going to have different episodes following after it. And if they would have done a 2-hour premiere, I think it would have worked better as a TV movie because you would have more plot development and character development. But unfortunately, we don't get that. So, and then at the end of the show, we get the dragon that lives under the stairs. He makes an appearance at the very end finally, and so all the nods and all the characters are there. We just basically get introduced to them, and it's done, which is very unfortunate, because it caught my attention. I was like, wow, okay, it could really capture. I think they were trying to get that grim audience and the happily ever after, or whatever that other show is, and the supernatural crowd. It was trying to get that kind of group, and I think it would have worked, but it was not as in your face monster. I mean, it was in certain spots, obviously, but it wasn't like Supernatural. It wasn't as hardcore as Supernatural. However, it was, like I said, underliningly evil. I mean, they made no bones about the fact that they were vampires and werewolves, and they eat people, and that's the part of the circle of life, which it was very odd. It struck very strange. So it's unfortunate it didn't get picked up. I would have liked at least seen a dozen episodes. I think it could have gone somewhere. I didn't want to like it, and I ended up actually did kind of like it. It was not bad. It was not like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, but it wasn't a bad show. And I think if they had a chance to continue to develop it, I think it could have turned into a really, really good show. So unfortunately, it is what it is. Maybe we'll get a release on it on Blu-ray. That'd be nice. I will put a link to it. It's on Hulu. You can watch it for free from Hulu, so I will add a link in the description so that you can check it out if you're interested. The other thing that was kind of interesting, and we'll take a look at, I found some concept art of the show, and it was actually supposed to be a lot more graphic and a lot more horrific and monstrous than what came out in the show. So let's take a look at some of that concept art, and then after, if you feel the need, check it out. It's not a bad show. It's 40 minutes. It's on Hulu. It's free, and it wasn't a bad show. It wasn't a bad reboot. It didn't exactly copy the original. It kind of brought it into the modern age, and it was a little off, a little creepy at times, and it was interesting. It's something to take a look at. So let's look at the concept art. All right, so here is the house, the concept art for the house there at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. It's not quite like that. The color scheme's right, and it does have the castle arches and things, but it's a little bit different, and it's also kind of sunk in. If you actually watch the episode, you'll see that the mansion is actually kind of on a hill and down into the hill because it's there in San Francisco, but it's not too dramatically different from what we see here. Here's the concept art of the main foyer, which was the primary set in the original series. This is almost exactly the way it looks in the final outcome, so this came through very, very well. Most of the sets, you see them in the backyard. You see them in this foyer a lot. You see Grandpa's cellar, Herman and Lily's bedroom, the rooftop, and the dining room. Those are the only sets that you see, but this is pretty much made it to screen as is, which not really surprising. It's very much drawn off the original series. All right, so here's another shot of the house or the mansion. And this time it looks like it's out in a bog or swamp somewhere, and I don't know if that's Herman walking up to the house or what. He almost looks like Lurch. So this was definitely not used in the show. They live right on, a suburban street, just like in the old sitcom, although there are lots of ravens and crows and dead trees around the house. That idea made it in there, but definitely not this kind of swamp bog set. Here's some concept art in the forest of Eddie as a werewolf on a prowl, and this is actually very, very similar to what we see in the show. This actually did make it to the show. All right, so here is, I'm presuming this is Eddie in werewolf mode, attacking someone, blood splatters, and actually killing them. This version of Eddie never made it to the show. He was completely covered in fur, and he just kind of threw around the campers and didn't really kill anybody in the show, just kind of scared everybody, horrified them, but there was no actual blood splattering and killing of the people like is depicted in this artwork. All right, so here's another shot of Eddie. He's in a graveyard, which we don't really have a graveyard scene at all in the pilot episode, and of course he's in clothes with a werewolf head. Again, they went with him being a total wolf with nothing but fur, which I think is a lot better than this. I like the graveyard concept. I would have liked to have seen a graveyard in the show, but unfortunately we didn't get that. Probably would have had some, this probably would have been a set at some point in the future had the show gotten picked up. All right, so here is concept art of what Herman was going to look like. Very different, very graphic, very scary. Definitely not what we see with Jerry O'Connell. Essentially, he's got the stitches around his neck and he's got stitches on his arm and on his chest, but he's definitely not this kind of monster, blood-dripping monster. So I don't know, would we have gotten the same Family Guy kind of flavor out of this character, or would he have been a lot darker? So they may have been trying to go for something a little bit more supernatural, a little bit more grim with this, and then changed it through the process. So yeah, very, very different. This looks like a horror movie, not the outcome that we got in the TV show. Here we've got a shot of Grandpa's cellar, and he's looking very Dracula-like, classic Universal Dracula-like here. A little Nosferatu action going on. And in fact, in the show, he looks more like the Bram Stoker Dracula, the Oldman version of Dracula, which worked for me. I liked the version that they had in the show. I think it worked really well. Much like I think Herman turned out better in the final outcome than what the concept art was. So very, very different there. The basement, you only see his working table when he's working on Herman, so you really don't get too much of a feel of what the whole cellar looks like, which I'm sure we would have seen in further episodes. All right, so there we have it, Mockingbird Lane. This is obviously the final outcome, and I do think this worked a lot better because they blend into society better than the Universal monsters ever would have. And, you know, it worked. It was not a bad little episode. Check it out. It's definitely worth watching for free. I kind of hope they put it out on Blu-ray, because I would pick it up on Blu-ray. I'd like to see what other features and the commentaries that they would have to go along with it, because I'm sure there's a lot more story to it there than, you know, what were some of the other story ideas that they could have done. And, you know, it could possibly get picked up mid-season as a replacement or a fill-in, but I truly doubt it, unfortunately. I think NBC is just going to pass on it. So this concept of the Munsters is unfortunately gone. When will we see another reboot? Will we see a movie? I don't know. Check it out. I got the link down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and look for more videos in the future.